Right now, somewhere in the world, a parent is standing alone in a dark room at 3 a.m., holding a screaming baby that will not stop. They've fed them, changed them, rocked them, sung to them, and nothing works. The baby just keeps screaming for hours, and nobody has ever told that parent the real reason why. We call it colic, a word that sounds medical, official, solved. But here's the truth. After decades of research, scientists still don't fully agree on what colic actually is. What they do agree on is this: it's not just a stomach problem, it's not just gas, and it's not just a difficult baby. What's happening inside a colicky infant is something far stranger, far older, and far more connected to the human survival story than anyone ever tells new parents. This isn't a story about crying. This is a story about a nervous system that doesn't know it's safe yet. For years, the dominant theory was simple. Colic is digestive. The baby has gas. The baby has an intolerant gut. Give them drops, change the formula, cut dairy from mom's diet. Problem solved. And sure, that helps sometimes. But here's what that theory can't explain. Why do colicky episodes happen at almost exactly the same time every day? Typically in the late afternoon and evening. Gas doesn't have a schedule. Digestion doesn't follow a clock. If it were purely physical discomfort, you'd see random crying throughout the day. But you don't. The screaming arrives like clockwork. Same hour, same intensity, night after night. That's not a stomach problem. That's a neurological one. Researchers at the University of British Columbia and later at Harvard's Developmental Psychology labs started looking at colic not as a digestive condition, but as a regulatory one. What they found surprised everyone. In infants between 2 and 4 months old, the exact window when colic peaks, the nervous system is undergoing one of the most rapid periods of reorganization in all of human development. The brain is essentially being rewired at high speed, new connections forming, old reflexes fading. And during that process, the baby's capacity to self-regulate, to calm itself down, temporarily collapses. Think of it like upgrading software while the computer is running. For a brief window, the system becomes unstable. And when that instability meets the sensory overload of late afternoon, the accumulated stimulation of an entire day, the result is a meltdown the baby is neurologically unable to stop. Not because they're in pain, but because they don't yet have the tools to come back down. But here's where it gets even stranger, and this is the part nobody tells you. Colic peaks at 6 weeks of age, and almost always disappears by 3 to 4 months. That's not a coincidence. That is a developmental window. A specific, predictable, encoded window. And when researchers cross-reference this timeline with fetal development, they found something remarkable. The 6-week peak of colic corresponds almost exactly to the point at which, if the baby had been born at full term, they would have been born. Premature babies, their colic peaks later, adjusted for gestation, right on schedule. What this suggests is that colic may not be a disorder at all. It may be a mismatch. Humans are born earlier than almost any other mammal because our brains are too large to stay in the womb any longer. We come out developmentally unfinished, and for those first few months outside the womb, the nervous system is still expecting the womb, the warmth, the constant motion, the sound of a heartbeat at all times. The outside world isn't wrong. The baby just hasn't learned yet that it's safe. That inconsolable crying, it may be a survival alarm that hasn't been told it can stop. But here's where it gets even deeper, because it's not just about the baby. In the 1990s, a pediatric researcher named Dr. Ronald Barr conducted a now famous study by observing infant crying patterns across different cultures. He studied the Kung San people of southern Africa, a hunter-gatherer community where mothers carry their babies almost continuously and respond to every sound within seconds. The result? Those babies cried just as often as babies in Western cultures. Same number of crying episodes, but the duration was dramatically shorter. The episodes ended faster, not because the babies were fundamentally different, but because the nervous system received its signal. I am held, I am safe, I am not alone, and was able to come back down. The crying itself, Barr concluded, was normal, universal, hardwired. What differed was the environment's ability to meet the baby's biological expectation. In a world where humans evolved to be held nearly constantly in the first months of life, our modern practice of placing babies alone, even in safe and loving conditions, may simply be a mismatch between ancient biology and modern life. And this is where you come in. Because if you've ever held a screaming baby and felt helpless, frustrated, even frightened, that response is also hardwired. The sound of an infant cry activates the stress centers in the adult brain within milliseconds. It is one of the most powerful auditory triggers in all of human neuroscience. You are not weak for finding it unbearable. You are responding exactly the way evolution designed you to respond. That sound was meant to be impossible to ignore. It was meant to summon you. You are not just watching this from the outside. That system was built for you too. And there's one more layer to this, because recent research has begun to look at what happens to a colicky baby's stress hormones during the inconsolable period. What they found raises important questions. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, spikes during extended crying. In most situations, cortisol rises and falls. But in prolonged unsoothable crying, the cortisol can remain elevated even after the episode ends. This doesn't mean colic causes lasting harm. Most babies come through it completely fine. But it has led some developmental neurologists to argue that the way we respond to colic, not the colic itself, may matter more than we ever realized. Not because the baby is consciously remembering, but because the nervous system is learning, in these earliest weeks, whether distress leads to comfort, whether alarm leads to safety, whether the world responds. Here is the important part. If you are a parent in the middle of this right now, the sleeplessness, the helplessness, the guilt of not being able to fix it, please hear this. You are not failing. The baby is not broken. You are both caught inside a biological process that is older than language, older than civilization, older than almost everything we think of as human. This will end. The window closes. The nervous system finishes its rewiring. And almost every colicky baby on the other side of this is fine. But the parent who holds them through it, that matters more than science has ever fully measured. We spend so much time trying to fix the cry, to stop it, to solve it. But maybe the deepest truth about colic is this. Some things in human development aren't problems to be solved. They're passages to be endured together. The baby is learning that the world is safe, and they can only learn that one way, by experiencing the fear, and then experiencing the arms that come. That screaming in the dark at 3 a.m., it's not chaos. It's communication, the oldest kind there is. So here's what I want to ask you. What if the most important thing you ever do for another human being happens in a moment you can barely survive yourself? Think about that. And if you want to understand what happens to the brain in the first year of life, the thing that shapes personality, attachment, and how we handle fear for the rest of our lives, that video is next.